The mind of a student athlete undergoes a lot of pressure. Do your best. It's all up to you. The school is counting on you. With all this built up already on them, they might not realize that the biggest amount of pressure could hit them right in the head: a concussion. It costs over $1,000 to equip a football player. But what is the cost of a brain? Friday night lights, the band, the football, the fans. But among all these things, a silent killer, a concussion.
So a concussion is a traumatic injury to a brain where an impact has caused some sort of, at minimal, a grazing of the brain inside the skull. Minimal are bruising, maximal are cellular or brain bleeds and such. The severity is based on the mode of the injury. So if it could be anything as small as a bruise on the brain, or it can be as severe as an actual brain bleed, which would be some sort of traumatic impact to the skull.
I have received 3 concussions in my life. One when I was 11, one 2 years ago, and one about 18 months ago.
I haven't been diagnosed for any concussions, but due to the symptoms that I've had, I'd say about 2 or 3.
Immediate symptoms would be dizziness, the vision issues, cognitive issues would be can't remember today, can't remember what day of the week it is, you can't remember where you are, things of that nature. More severe symptoms would be, obviously at the mode of impact, would be loss of consciousness, and then when you regain consciousness, not knowing again time, place, day, and then nausea, any type of immediate shock symptoms would fit into that as well.
It gets kind of fuzzy, and you can kind of just tell. You get like a headache instantly.
I had really, really bad headaches, and I remember I couldn't look straight and walk, or I'd get extremely dizzy. I'd have to look straight down at the ground, and the light was so bright, I would have to wear sunglasses at night, and that lasted for about 2 or 3 months or so.
I'd get confused, I guess, once in a while, but eventually it just kind of went away.
The summer going into my freshman year of high school, I was at a soccer camp as a goalkeeper, and we were doing this drill where one person would shoot across and another person would shoot across, and I was in goal, and the person who was supposed to be shooting across from me kind of hit me square on the side of the head, and I basically just crumpled to the ground there. And
but men, you're men.
In 2015, Will Smith starred in the movie Concussion, chronicling
Their
the research
families
of
left in
forensic
ruins.
pathologist Dr. Bennett Amalu, who exposed the NFL's decades-long cover-up of concussions, whose research set a new precedent of the way football should be
Tell the
played.
truth.
The symptoms went away. I played a season of high school soccer, and then at the end of the season, all the symptoms, they just came back really heavily. And I went to a neurologist, and basically was on a bunch of medications to try to get rid of the headaches. And eventually the symptoms went away, but then in March of the year after, I basically was at volleyball tryouts, and I dove for a ball and I hit the back of my head on the gym floor. And I picked up my 3rd concussion. And that was kind of scary because for the first time I had no feeling in my neck at first, and it was kind of scary, but that went away overnight. And that 3rd concussion really set off a chain of events that I'm just now, almost 2 years later, breaking the cycle of, because for almost the past 2 years I've had headaches every day. And I've been on countless medications, and currently still are on countless medications to try to numb the headaches. My 3 concussions have impacted my daily life. It's been almost 2 years since the most previous concussion, and only now I'm getting rid of headaches that I've had basically every day for the past 2 years. I can't be in loud environments for extended periods of time, or the next day I'll wake up with a really, really bad headache, and I'll basically, have to basically lay in bed the whole day.
I have seen like a lot of younger teams have gone to less physical practices and less physical ways of playing in the game and stuff.
I've noticed a significant drop in the amount of people that play, especially for the youth football. When we were kids, we used to have full rosters up to 35 people, and now for my brothers who play, they only have about 20 people on their teams.
The amount of contact football that is played is lessened because they have more flag football teams that kids play up until 8th grade freshman year. So I think that's probably one of the biggest additions to promoting less contact but still having a positive effect on football in itself.
When a conflict is involved in a situation, people often ask themselves how to deal with it. Some unfortunately take the route of violence, and others choose to deal with it wisely by simply walking away or using non-violent methods. If a situation gets too out of hand, some students seek for guidance counselors or any adults for help. Here we sat down with the principal of Salem High School to talk about possible avoidances during a conflict.
So what's your role at Salem High School?
Okay, as the principal, my role is to first keep students and staff safe. That's number one priority, make sure all are treated with dignity and respect in the building, and obviously make sure learning is happening.
And do you believe that there are more conflicts today between students than in previous years, generations?
I just, we typically don't have a lot of fights at Salem High School. I mean, there have been years, there's one. It just seemed this year there happened 3 fights in a close amount of time, and it's unsettling, and it's not typical of Salem High School.
What do you believe that the largest contributing factors are to students having conflicts?
It's, when I started in administration 11 years ago, social media was not as prominent. Not as many students had phones. I really feel that that's one issue that contributes to the level of conflict we are seeing. I definitely see when the deans or I speak to people face to face, instead of email or through their Snapchat or social media. It's definitely a different type of communication, and usually we can come to some resolution with the students involved. I also think that students have many more pressures these days than they did 10, 11 years ago.
What do you think any strategies students can employ to avoid these conflicts?
I know kids today, their world is social media, and that's how you communicate. I would suggest any student who sees something online or in social media, just question if that's really how a person is feeling. I think people tend to put things out there and don't think about people on the other end, the receiving end of what's been put out on social media. It's much easier to do it while you're sitting at your computer. I truly believe kids wouldn't say or put out half of what they do if they were having a face-to-face conversation with someone. So I would, first of all, question what's out there. Is it really true about that person, or is this really how someone feels? Think twice before you put something out there. There is a person on the other end, on the receiving end of that comment, and it could hurt someone's feelings. Think about the way you may be portrayed when you put something out there on social media. That's really not who you are in person, but then you have this different persona online. So I would definitely use social media because it's a great tool. I mean, I know we use it here at school all the time. That's how I communicate with students, via tweeting, email. It makes you more accessible, but definitely use it the right way and responsibly. I would also say if you see something on social media that is bothering you, save it, take a picture of it, and report it to a trusted adult, whether it's, you know, me or a dean or a teacher or a parent. Let somebody know, and then let us take care of it. I know the deans, they look into every report that they get.
There are definitely like students who have social phobias that, you know, can't confront to adults or principals, so they have to use, you know, technology, emails to kind of talk to you through that. There are conflicts.
Yeah. You know, even with the situation with the articles, the superintendent and I had a student reach out to us in an email. He was feeling uneasy, very respectful in his email. And it led to a very lengthy conversation with him and another friend. He said he felt better after, and actually in that conversation he made a suggestion to me that I think is a great idea that we'll use moving forward, just making sure that our staff has some talking points and enough information so that they can address students' needs and concerns in class. It's definitely better doing it in small groups instead of whole school-wide assemblies. Yeah.
So that's all we have today. Thank you for interviewing with us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and again, if kids have anything to share with us, please let us know. Yeah. We address everything that is reported to us. Yep. Thank you.
Some careers are obvious that they have a better salary than others. Even though this may be true, does it mean that the people in those fields of work are happy? Do those people truly love what they do? Nowadays, choosing a career is mostly based upon how much money you will get from it. But why does society let the factor of money override the choice of happiness? In today's society, the popularity of humanities majors seems to be declining. This is partially because of the pressure placed upon students to pursue STEM-related career paths. STEM majors include science, technology, engineering, and math. They are all becoming more and more popular because of our society's constant need for innovative technology and medicine. But what happened to the humanities? Where does art come into play in a science-oriented world?
And I remember my family, like, for so long, they've always been asking, like, the two of us, like, oh, what do you two want to be, right? And, like, he's been, like, dead set locked in, like, since, like, freshman year that he wants to be a surgeon, right? Mm-hmm. And, like, for a while, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to go into theater. And, like, the difference between, like, the reactions between two of us, like, he'd be like, oh, I want to be, like, a surgeon. They'd be like, oh, that's so amazing and stuff like that. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm thinking about going into theater. And they're like, oh, well, do you have a backup plan and stuff like that? And I'm like...
I think that we take for granted that, like, humanities are, like, a hard and challenging thing, and they're just as valid as, like, any STEM would be. It's just harder for people to understand because there's no one clear track to become an author. Like, sure, for STEM, if you want to become a scientist, like, all right, you go to the school, teach you about science skills, you become a scientist. But, like, author, it's like, where are you going to work? What could happen here? What are you going to write about? Like, what could fall through? And I think that, like, we as a society fear, like, what we don't know and, like, the possibility of failure, when, like, I think that those who are interested in humanities are ready to, like, take that on, and, like, failure leads to success in some way. And, like, I think that's where, like, differs.
I think that, so STEM classes, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, the sciences and math they teach us a great deal about the facts of the world. What is the world made up of, and how does the physical world work, right? Everything from medicine to this camera, to a computer. It gives us a great deal of practical knowledge. But what the sciences and math don't give us is much in the way of how do we act in the world. What do we do with our lives? How do we find meaning and purpose? How do we understand our past in order to arrange and engineer our future? How do we learn about other people's experiences? How do we answer the big questions, the big philosophical questions? As useful as science and technology is, it doesn't give us a lot insofar as how to conduct our lives outside of the workplace. And it doesn't do so much in the way of answering the question, why am I working? And what am I working for? And why do I want a salary? And why do I want a job? The humanities address the meaning of life, and the meaning and the purpose of life, and of course that has enormous value.
The humanities allow people to find answers for life's bigger questions. In many careers, this is an essential skill to have. But what causes people to see humanities as less valuable than STEM careers? Why do humanities students feel inferior to STEM students? And what can we do as a society to change that?
But they're indirectly taught that science and math are more valued, at least in my personal experience. Like, I would write a good writing piece and I'd get 100 and my mom would be like, oh, good job. But I'd get like a 95 on a math test and she'd be like, oh, you're so smart, you're gonna be so like good when you get older. And so it's that sort of, and there, like, no one was ever saying to me writing is less important than math. But you start to get that, especially being a girl, and there's this push now for girls in STEM. Yes. And a lot of people like me are sitting here like, well, I am not good at science, I'm not good at math, I don't understand it well enough. So does that mean I'm not going to go anywhere?
Well, I think that it relates in some ways to what I had said before about the STEM careers have a very specific and reliable end in mind, in that when you're finished with a course of study in nursing, you can be a nurse. When you finish a course of study in engineering, you're on your way to becoming an engineer. It's something that's determined. In the humanities, that's not necessarily the case. You have more choices. You have to be more creative about what you'll then pursue, and you may need more schooling. You may need to go on to graduate school after getting a bachelor's degree. But I also think that the humanities could be better at advocating for itself and convincing students that they have value, and that there's more to learning than learning how to do something. There's more to learning than learning how to get a job.
I had a student in AP Lit, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, but she wanted to become a doctor. No doubt she is going to become a doctor. Super at math, science, and English. And I said, why did you come all the way like through and take AP Lit when you're so locked into what you know you want to do? And she said, I don't ever want to be a doctor and just understand everything about the human body, but not know about the human soul. And that's what literature teaches us, which to me was incredibly profound.
There's a number of career paths for which the humanities is absolutely central. STEM careers are really good at communicating to students what they need to do to be successfully an engineer or an accountant or a scientist. I'm not sure that people in the humanities are successful communicating to students how they can successfully be a philosopher, a historian, an attorney, a senator, a teacher, a writer, a journalist. I mean, these are all careers in the humanities. There are a lot of careers in the humanities, but I'm not sure, like I said, that people in the humanities are as certain as to how to communicate that to students, and I'm not sure that they're good at doing so yet. I think the humanities has some work to do. For a long time, I believe that the humanities sort of took it for granted that people understood that they were valuable. But in the STEM world that we live in now, we've got some work to do insofar as advocating for ourselves as people in the humanities.
We live in a world where both STEM and humanities careers are needed. So why do we look down upon students who choose to major in humanities and praise the ones who go to a STEM career path? Instead of comparing humanities against STEM careers, society should work on combining the knowledge of both fields together, allowing to improve the critical thinking and communication skills for future adults.
Today's modern world, there are many ways for people to receive their current news. Although, one thing that sometimes goes unnoticed is how often the news changes what they're talking about. In this segment, we discuss how the media can be so focused on one thing and in the blink of an eye, be focused on something else.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We are reporting live here at the new Seifert Auditorium at Salem High School, where a student has attempted to start a campfire on the stage, and the whole building is now in flames. The student is believed to be 17-year-old Jermy Glander, who claimed to be cold and went to far lengths to get warm.
This is CNN Breaking News.
This just in, the baby giraffe at the local zoo just took its first steps. Let's take a look. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. The miracle of life.
Hey. I just started a fire and you're talking about a baby giraffe.
It's the miracle of life.
Miracle of life. All right, pan the camera over here. This is the Jeremy Show now. I'm the new anchor. This just in, it's pouring outside. We should go inside. Can we go inside?
The sketch you just saw was an example of how media can be focused on one topic and in the blink of an eye be talking about something else. With today's modern media, it is common to find that many news outlets control what we, as consumers, see. Most commonly found, 1 minute everyone is talking about a devastation that has happened, and a week later, suddenly no one is talking about it. For example, the recent hurricanes. At its first impact, most were talking of raising money and helping with relief awareness. But as time went on, its spotlight on the media went dark, while the people living in those places were still struggling. We had the opportunity to sit down with Mr. Fox and hear his opinion on the media. We wanted to sit down with you and talk with you today and see kind of your standpoint and how today's modern media is. And so one of the questions I have for you is, in what ways do you think that the media controls what the people see?
Media is interesting because it's all in the process of editing. The media has to choose what's important, what to show, and how to convey that information to the viewer. And so, since it's impossible to cover an event, and for example, there was a recent terrorist attack in New York City. Cameras can't cover everything, so the media has to decide which images to show, which images to highlight, which to repeat, because repetition is a big part of it as well. And so it's all in, if you think about it, in an editing process of taking things out and what do you leave in. I would say that media certainly influences what we know, but since we have a free press in the United States, we get to see all sorts of perspectives, some more valuable than others. So we can get different editing versions of the information that's presented to us. So we, as consumers of media, can select what it is we trust and what we don't.
I agree. Definitely some networks will focus on one standpoint of something, while another will focus a little bit more on the opposite standpoint.
And as a as a consumer, it is important to remember that no human being cannot have bias. Everyone has a bias. Exactly. And all journalists are taught not to have a bias, but they're still human beings, so they're going to. And it's recognizing the perspective that a journalist or TV station or newspaper or website is coming from, and being aware of that when you consume what it is they have to say.
The media has a tight grip on what we, the consumers, see and what we know. As consumers, it's beneficial for us all to be consistently aware of what's going on in the world.
Waking up for school in the morning is an age-old problem for students. Early start times and a lack of sleep can not only affect students' capacity to learn, but their health and attention span as well. Would pushing back start times really help, or would the changed schedule cause more problems for students?
Many schools in recent years have thrown around the idea of changing their start times, and recently, Salem High School has joined the list. The Salem School District School Board made it their goal this year to review and possibly change the current 7:30 a.m. start time Salem High School has. This is being done in light of recent studies that have found that early start times affect kids' capacity to learn. In order to better understand the effects our current schedule has on students, administrators and staff at SHS participated in a case study that had participants experience everyday life as a Salem High School student.
So last year we formed a design team. It's made up of teachers and the superintendent and myself and a couple other administrators, and we started trying to formulate our vision. What is it we want Salem High School to be? We struggled a little bit with that because I think we're all so ingrained in the Salem High School culture, and so we decided to bring in an outside consultant. The Center for Secondary School Redesign offered a facilitator to us, and that facilitator helped us with 2 activities. We had one last Monday on October 16th, and that was a student shadowing day. So 13 staff members, including myself, we spent the entire day walking in the steps of a student from 7:30 to 2:10. I went to every class. I sat in the lunchroom to have lunch, and it was eye-opening. And we selected all different types of students, freshmen through seniors, students in AP classes, students in CTE programs, students who need additional support in the classroom, students who English is their second language. We wanted to really get a diverse group of students to shadow. And the second activity we had was a student forum. That was neat. We had 4 groups of students and 1 group of teachers, and they brainstormed and really thought about what their top 5 things they like about Salem High School are, and what the top, what 5 things don't they like about Salem High School. And they were able to share out, staff and students, very open communication. The students didn't hold back. They felt appreciated that we were soliciting their input in this whole process, and that they might have a say in what Salem High School looks like in the future. But it was that, again, another eye-opening experience. We came back together, we debriefed, we kind of created a list of our most important things we would like to see happen at Salem High School, and that information will go back to the original design team, and we'll start looking at that, look for patterns, and then try and figure out what schedule will allow us to accommodate what those things that students and staff are looking for in our schedule.